Hi, hello everybody. This is Dr.G.P.Sudhakar, Professor of Management from Hyderabad, India. Right. So, in this specific video, I would like to explain you the generic research process. Okay. This research process you can apply for management research or social sciences research. Social sciences research. Right. See, basically, so this can be, for example, usually when we talk about research process, management research, a majority of the papers published, are the empirical studies across the world. Majority of the papers published are empirical studies. So I will take you through how to do a empirical study through the research process. I will explain you what is the process to conduct empirical study, and also conceptual study also I will touch a bit upon, and a couple of examples I will take you through. Right. So to start with, what is the research process? Research process. If you want to conduct an empirical study, what is the process? See, for example, the idea comes to you. Right. First, what is the idea? Where you will identify the research problem, the newspapers you read, the magazines, business magazines you read, or the literature, journals you read, gives input for you, for the research purpose. Right. So you can identify a research problem from the literature, whatever you gathered. See, for that, research problem identification requires a brief literature review at the beginning. That is called preliminary literature review. See the steps. First, I will tell you what are the steps involved in the research process, and then I will explain you each one by one. Right. First one is the preliminary literature review. First one is preliminary literature review, means 3-4 research papers or 4-5 research papers you have to read. Then that gives input to the problem description. Right. So you have the second step is problem description. Next step is detailed literature review. Next step is research model development. Next, hypothesis definition, followed by research design. After that comes the questionnaire design. Next comes data collection. After that, data preparation, data analysis. Next, research findings. Then writing thesis or report or the paper, research paper. Right. These are the steps involved in writing in doing research. Typically empirical study. Typical empirical study. See, to start with the first, right, preliminary literature review is the first step. That means you have to collect close to 7 to 8 or no less than 10 only. That gives you a broad idea. What is the problem? What is the research problem? Right. See that you frame that research problem. You frame the by collecting the 10 research papers or initial research papers, whatever you collected, you note it down. This is the problem identified. So usually research problem, it consists of questions, right? So you can have, at the most 3 questions, research questions in a research. It is best practice to have 1 or 2 research questions. For example, you are writing a paper, 1 or 2 research questions, right? Because further they will become your hypothesis. Whatever research questions you have made, right? After this process, I will explain you how to do it. See, problem description you have got, right? Brief description you have written. It includes 2 questions, research questions, right? This is what is the research question I have identified. Next comes what, and also you have to write the research objective. What is my objective of research? What is my objective of research? As part of problem description, also research objective also you can write. Next, followed by detailed literature review. See, you have identified the research problem, right? In the problem description, you have specified. Next, to do further literature review. Further literature review. Here comes, you have to use different search engines. For example, Google Scholar, or any DOAJ, Director of Open Access Journals, or OpenJGate, ResearchGate, academia.edu, SSRN, these kind of databases. These kind of academically available journals databases. right? You apply different keywords. For example, I will tell you one example. I will take you through later on. That is, for example, you want to find out what are the top 5 factors contributing to automobile sales in India. For example, this year it is a very high rate, so there can be several factors, right? What are the top 5 factors contributing to automobiles sales growth in India? That is your research topic you started with, right? So for that detailed literature review, what factors will impact, right? You have to keep in Google. So which keywords factor impacting automobile sales. Similarly, individual factor plus automobile sale. Other other aspects contributing to automobile sales growth. Different keywords you have to use, combination of keywords, right? You change the keyword. Don't take more than 5 results what are coming for the same combination of the keywords. That way you can get the unique literature. Unique literature. For example, you use one keyword, keyword one. With that, you collect only maximum 5 papers, whatever came out. Next, use keyword two, collect another 5 papers, so that you will have diversity. So that the factors what you identify, what are the factors in the literature, they will vary. You will have diversity of factors for your research purpose when you are using different keywords in search engines, right? So for example, you are writing an empirical paper having 40 to 50 literature journal papers would be, right way, 50 research paper, 40 to 50 is the ideal case for an empirical study. If you want to do, collect 40 to 50 research papers, collect 40 to 50 research papers. So next what you have to do, right? See here, and also the year of publication of those papers. You have in a longitudinal years. Take probably from 1980, or it depends, right? What is the when the area has been started? For example, take project management or any other areas. You can go back to 1970s, or wide research has been done since 70s and 80s, right? 80, next you pick up 90, like that. Origin is before that. For example, take organizational behavior or any other aspects, principles of management functions. I know it goes back to 1950 for 1940 itself, right? For example, you want to do research on teams. Bruce Tuckman, when he was published a paper 1960s. 1960s, right? So if you take the original paper also, that adds value to your research. Collect the Bruce Tuckman paper if you want to team development stages. What is that you want to find? You want to take that paper. It is 1960s paper, right? So like that, have different years paper, and also include current what is the latest research done 2020 or 2019 18 papers also. You collect, you have a variant years of publication of the papers what you collect. So you have 40 to 50 papers here. See, in the literature review, what is that you are doing? You are identifying what are the different variables, right, are the factors in the automobile sales growth specific to topics, right? For example, one paper might have specified individual factors are important for automobile sales, individual factors. Another paper may say that second paper, family factors impact automobile sales growth. And third paper says that the nature of job is another factor. Fourth factor says that, so fourth paper, no, it is organization is giving incentive as a bonus or award for car. So organizational factor is impacting. Somebody says environmental factor, some other research paper. So like that, you have to get references for these specific factors from different papers. For example, reference 1 has given individual factors. Individual factors. Reference 2 gives family related factors. Family factors. Reference 3 gives organization specific factors. Organization factors. Reference 4, what is that it gives? It gives job specific factors. No, nature of job itself is like that he has to purchase a car. Right? Job specific. Job specific factors. Next, reference 5 is environmental specific factor. Environmental specific factor. So like this, in the collected literature, you have to retrieve these variables from respect to literature. Maybe from 40, 50. See, once you identify this category of factor is used in reference 1, you can take 2, 3 items from it. Similarly, some other research paper has used another 2, 3 items, individual factors, individual attitude, or individual interests. Interests is another one more paper included. So you put those items also here. That means in that factor you are having 5 items. Similarly, family factors. One paper specified 2 items and another paper specified 2 items. We have 4 items. So like this, for each category of variable you identified from the literature, take the items. Take the items. I will tell you why you are doing this exercise. Later on, what is happening? See, once you are done with this, you have identified these are the individual factors. These are the individual factors. Similarly, these are the family related factors. So each item also you can identify from one paper or 2, 3 papers. Right? Right. So this, what is it, another each factor will have 4, 5 items, right? So this is further what is that it is doing, all these are impacting sales growth, automobile sales growth, auto sales. So what is your main objective of research? Objective is identify top 5 factors contributing to automobile sales, auto automobile sales growth, right? This is your objective. So what is that you found from the literature? You have identified different factors from the literature, right? So all these are part of the problem domain. What you identified, all those factors you identified from the literature are part of the problem domain. Right. So then you keep the dependent variable automobile sales growth. What is your from your problem domain? So next, draw the model, research model. That becomes your research model. Right? Research model. What is it? It consists of. This is a conceptual model. Research models are of two types are there. I personally use conceptual models widely, right? So this is an example conceptual model. There are mathematical models. There are architectural, engineering related scientific models as well. There are there, but specific to our management research or social sciences research. So these conceptual models are best fit for empirical studies. See this conceptual model, how did we derive from the literature? Different research papers gave me different factors, and in the items I collected for further other papers and collected the items. Collected the items inside each factor. That became my model. Research model. Right. These are the factors impacting automobile sales. Right. So you have references, right? Then this is called research model. research model. So it gives variables and relationship between the variables. Relationship between the variables. That is model, right? So these relationships you can get it using literature gap and also the problem domain and also the problem domain. The relationships variables come from literature and the relationships, right? So they come from the literature gap and the problem description. Right. So this further later on, what do you do with conceptual model? So this becomes hypothesis 1. This becomes hypothesis 2. This becomes hypothesis 3. This becomes hypothesis 4. This becomes hypothesis 5. Hypothesis definition. After research model development, you define the hypothesis. Right. What is the first hypothesis 1? Individual factors impact automobile sales. Individual factors. This is hypothesis 1. Individual factors impact automobile sales, right? Similarly, H2 family factors impact automobile sales growth. H3 hypothesis 3 organizational factors, like this. Organizational factors impact automobile sales growth. So like this, hypothesis 5 you got. Where you started with the problem, you started with initial literature for 7 8 papers you read. Next you defined the problem. Next you have moved on to literature review. You gathered 40 50 papers. From those papers you have identified these variables are impacting the automobile sales growth, and each variable having the items. Item means, for example, I told you, right? If for example individual factor is variable, if we say item is nothing but an attitude, behavior, interest of the individual, they become the items. Why I am telling is, see later on, see from this model is key to do any research. Basic fundamental formula is model. If you want to do PhD, you have to have a model. If you want to do management research, you have to have a model. If you want to develop an empirical study, you have to have a model. If you want to do conceptual study and do the propositions, you want to propose some hypothesis or propositions you want to make, then you have to have a conceptual model. Right. See, model is very much important, particularly conceptual model, if you want to do empirical study. Right. So, from this model, you got the hypothesis that using relationships. Next comes what? This model becomes input to questionnaire development also. This model becomes input to questionnaire development. Questionnaire development. Questionnaire development. Right. Questionnaire development, how do you do? See, each factor you have, right? Individual factor. These are 5 items. From 2 research papers you got, right? Total 5 items. 3 factors from 1 paper, 2 factors from 1 paper. You put this. Similarly, family factors, another 4 items. Organizational factors. You put, make it 20 item questionnaire. 20 item or as many number of items you get from the literature, you put the questionnaire. See, this is the process. From the literature, you identified the variables from different papers. Next, you have developed the model. From model, you have defined the hypothesis. After hypothesis, you are developing the questionnaire by taking these items. You have references also, right? For example, we are making a questionnaire means we should have authentic reference. Going back to, we should be able to, this item has been taken from this source, this reference. We should have a documentary evidence for whatever items we are including in the questionnaire. Otherwise, market surveys are there, right? Done by market survey companies like Nielsen, IDC, Global Data, these kind of companies. They can innovatively create their own question. So it is not, this is academic specific research, what we are doing, you know, right? So this should have, you should be able to trace back to specific research paper, the items what we take, right? So this, so then questionnaire has come, right? What do you do after questionnaire? You have to collect the data. See, before questionnaire, right? See, up to this comes under secondary research. Up to this, see, detailed literature review, hypothesis definition, and also include questionnaire design. This is secondary research. Up to this, that is preliminary literature review, problem description, detailed literature review, research model development, hypothesis definition, and questionnaire design. Up to this is the secondary research. Using journal papers and newspapers, publications, we are doing the research and developing a model and finally defining hypothesis and designing the questionnaire. This is the secondary research. Based on the already published papers and newspapers, we are doing it. Right. So, even if you want to do empirical study, first do the secondary research, bring it up to the stage of questionnaire development. Next, move on to primary research, that is the empirical research. Primary research means first hand data. We will be collecting the first hand data. See, what is that? What do you do for that purpose? For that purpose, what you have to do? Research design. Research design means what? What all will come in research design? What is the sample population I am considering? What is the sample size? What is the sample technique? Technique means random sampling, convenient sampling, different techniques are there. Even I am also aware of very few techniques, but I know how to do research. Okay, practical research. So based on my experience, right? So different techniques are there, but use simple technique. Simple technique. Yeah, even if you want to conduct, you have developed a questionnaire. You are giving a presentation in a conference or a seminar, online presentation. You give link to your questionnaire to the participants. Immediately you get the data. Results also will come in few minutes. That's how research. Very quick. You don't have to wait 6 months or 1 year for data collection. For example, 200, 300 participants are there in the training. You give the web link to your questionnaire, immediately you get the data. Right? See, like this. See, this is the research design. Right? Sample population, sample size, sampling technique you have to decide. You have to define. Next, what do you do? Next, data collection. From that sample, whatever we identified, collect the data by administering the questionnaire. By administering the questionnaire. Administering the questionnaire means what? For example, this is one way to collect data. Online. For example, you are presenting, you are taking one session, online session. Then link, give the questionnaire link to people. They will fill it and immediately you will get the data. That is spontaneous in 5 minutes. One way of collection, data collection. Otherwise, field, you have to go to the field and collect from consumers, users, or respondents. Physically give the physical questionnaire. You give it to them and collect the data. After collecting, you have to enter into the online. See, for example, you have developed the questionnaire, right? So this you can upload the questionnaire in Google Forms or Microsoft Forms or surveymonkey.com. Different websites are there, right? Wherein you can upload your questionnaire. Wherein you can upload your questionnaire. Now, that would be easy if you have online data collection. That would be easy for doing your research, right? So, for example, you have went to the field and collected data using physical questionnaire. Then what do you have to do? You have to come back and enter the data into the portal. Into your wherever is your form, you have to enter the data. All the records you have to enter. Next comes your data preparation. Preparation means what all will come. If any error is there, removing that error. Any, for example, 10 items are there in the questionnaire. Is there any one item left blank, which is a must data for my research? Or is there any double entries are there in one field wherein I require only one item for that? So you have to check. So for these kind of duplication or missing data, duplicate data, these kind of things you have to check. That is data preparation. Data preparation. See, for example, if you have around 150 to 200 respondents data, that is very good ideal scenario for an empirical study. For example, if it is PhD, 200 to 300 survey responses would be ideal. For example, you are writing a research paper, 100 plus would be ideal case. Respondents, right? So you data preparation. Next comes data analysis. In data preparation, you are removing the data duplication. Any errors are there, that also you are removing, right? That is next comes data analysis. In data analysis, what do you do? You apply statistical techniques. Example, correlation to find out the relationship between two variables. Regression to find out the impact of one variable and another variable. Chi-square test to find out the association. Like this, ANOVA, MANOVA, t-test. Different statistical techniques are there. Different statistical techniques. So those techniques you have to use in data analysis to find out, for example, here this is hypothesis. What is that? We defined individual factors impact automobile sales growth. Impact, we told impact automobile sales growth or affect individual factors affect automobile sales growth. To rephrase the hypothesis, then what will technique we have to apply? We have to use regression also, regression technique, and also correlation also we can use correlation also, whether in individual factors are related to automobile sales. There is a relationship between individual factors and automobile sales. There is a relationship between individual factors and automobile sales. There is a relationship between organizational factors and automobile sales. Like that, you can have hypothesis and use a correlation technique. Similarly, regression technique to find out the effect of one variable and another variable. Like this, you have to use the statistical techniques. Based on the result comes of the statistical technique. For example, first hypothesis is individual factor is related to automobile sales. That is my first hypothesis. Then I use correlation technique. For example, correlation value comes more than 0.75, indicates that there is a high correlation between individual factors and the automobile sales growth. There is a high correlation. From if this correlation value coefficient value is more than 0.75, like that we have to interpret the data. That is nothing but the research findings. Interpreting the results from the data, what is that analysis is giving to us. Statistical techniques give some data, right? In tables will come. Statistical tools you can use. Simple tool can be Microsoft Excel or SPSS. These kind of tools you can use, and then do the data analysis. So the analysis outcome, whatever is the statistical technique outcome, then you have to interpret and document the research findings. If, for example, correlation value varies, coefficient value varies from 0 to 1. If it is more than 0.75, it is a strong correlation. 0.5 to 0.75 average to strong correlation. So like this, if it is 0, there is no correlation between these two variables. Huh? Correlation coefficient value 0 means there is no correlation, there is no relationship between these two variables. We can say, we can interpret like that based on the statistical value what is coming out. So like this we have to document the research findings, right? Next comes the research report writing, or paper writing, right? So this is her thesis writing, right? So, for example, if it is a research paper, having up to 4 to 5 hypotheses is ideal case. You can have in an empirical study having 4 to 5 hypotheses. Sometimes even some people have even hardly 2 hypotheses in research papers. So, having 4 to 5 hypotheses is ideal case, right? So, similarly, and where this is a model you should have. Now, these are some of the key areas where you need to focus: model, hypothesis, and then questionnaire, having for doing empirical study, right? So these are the key areas for conducting empirical study, right? See, for example, you want to do conceptual study. Conceptual study means what? You can stop up to here. You can stop up to even here itself. You can stop. You can start with the preliminary literature review. Next, problem define. Next, detailed literature review do, model development and hypothesis definition. You leave it there. After developing the hypothesis, you leave the research there. This is the propositions I am making. Right. Further researchers across the world can continue the research. Continue my research and conduct the primary study. What is that I have done is the only the literature review and conceptual study. Secondary research based study I have done, and conceptual model I have developed, and I have given the proposed hypothesis. Somebody can develop the further develop the questionnaire, and then conduct administer the questionnaire, collect data, and do the primary research. Primary research. So like this is the research process. This is the secondary research stage. This is the primary research stage. This is the primary research stage. So this is about the research process. So this is applicable to management research. One more video is there, how to write a research paper. I will explain in that video specifically what all should be the components of a video. I will explain you in another video. So just know that this is the process of research. This is the generic management research process, or any social sciences research also we can use this process. Any social sciences also we can use this process, right? So thank you everybody. Hope I'm able to convey the research process. Right. So just focus and have a couple of minutes to look at this board whether you will be able to see it or not. Okay. Thank you. Thank you everybody.